Okay, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Anahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulihil kareem. Amma ba'd. Alhamdulillah, we discussed in our last class, and also before that class, we talked about the first, according to our course outline, the first Islamic economic scholar, Imam Abu Yusuf, and we talked about his background, about himself, his biography. Then we talked about his work, what he has done in Kitab al-Kharaj, and how far Kitab al-Kharaj has become the magnum opus in this, especially the particular field of Islamic economic thought. Now we are moving to the second author, second scholar of this course outline, which is Imam Abu Ubayd al-Qasim bin Salam. Right? I think many of you know the name. Abu Ubayd is actually the author of Kitab al-Amwal, and Imam Abu Ubayd, also you have seen his name somewhere in our university, like we have two lecture theater. One is by the name of Abu Yusuf, the other one is Abu Ubaidah. I think if you remember the name Abu Ubayd. Yeah. So basically speaking, Imam Abu Ubaid's Kitab al-Amwal has brought, many aspects of the mal itself, the amwal, because that is the plural of mal. Imam Abu Ubaid, he is not an Arab. So that is the most important point that we need to keep in our mind. Like Imam Abu Yusuf, unlike Imam Abu Yusuf, because Imam Abu Yusuf was an Arab, and Imam Abu Ubaid, his father's name is actually Salam. His father his father was a Roman slave, and Imam Abu Ubaid was from Khurasan. Today it's in between Iran and Afghanistan. You can have a map on part of it in Iran, part of it in Afghanistan today. In fact, the father Salam, who used to work for a Roman Empire as a slave in that country, he himself, made his son. He wanted his son to learn Arabic, so he told someone who knew Arabic. He told him that Alimi Mahira. The word, the word Alimi Mahira is not Alim, is actually teach my son. The word Alimi, when you say Alimi, you can only use the word for female, not for male. So of course, it shows that the father didn't know Arabic well, but he wanted his son to learn Arabic. And later, he started learning Arabic. Not only he started learning Arabic, and he became, something that even Arabs themselves, they wanted to refer to him. There was, a subject called Gharib al-Hadith. Gharib is actually the meaning itself, Gharib. It is something that, you don't have clear picture on what exactly the word mean itself. So it is linguistically speaking. It's a literally linguistically a kind of specialization to understand the origin of the word. When Allah used that word, and then when Rasul used that word, what exactly could be the background of that particular word? Imam Abu Ubaid was, of course, we all know about Imam Abu Ubaid for his book, magnum opus, Kitab al-Amwal, but Kitab al-Amwal became famous only after his demise. But while he was Imam Abu Ubaid, while he was Abu Ubaid, he was known for Gharib al-Hadith. Remember that. Even Arabs, even you know, imams like Imam Shafi'i himself, accepted his idea, accepted his reference. There was a word in Arabic, in Quran, by the way. There was a word in Quran called quru. The word quru, when Allah talks about, the female, the menses, there are periods of menses. When Allah talks about some sort of calculation, how many times, how many months you have to see, you have to count. Allah used the word quru. Now there is always an ikhtilaf. When you look into fiqh, whether when Allah mentioned quru, is it the beginning of the period of menses or the ending of the period of menses? Now these are the issues were there. One of the example that Imam Abu Ubayd was able to get that word properly, and then this is just one example. There are so many other words that was not so clear to Arabs, and he was able to bring that word and then give it to Arabs. So that was what actually Imam Abu Ubayd, all right. So so I want to talk about his timeline. When he was there, uh, because that will take you to the so that you can actually compare with other scholars of that time, because there is not much difference between the time period of Abu Yusuf and Imam Abu Ubaid. In fact, both scholars, they worked for Harun Rashid. Perhaps at the beginning of Harun Rashid, Imam Abu Yusuf was there, but at the ending of Harun Rashid, Imam Abu Ubaid was there. So they were very close. And not only that, Imam Abu Ubaid himself, he told in his book that he learned many things from Abu Yusuf and also from Muhammad Shaybani. So now you can see that the timeline is actually similar to all these the students of Abu Hanifa and then Imam Shafi'i himself. So he was the same period of time. That's why we call Kitab al-Kharaj was the first book. Then we consider Kitab al-Amwal was the second. Right? He learned from so many scholars, of course, and he also traveled with Yahya bin Ma'in. He lived between Umayyad and Abbasid period of time, right? And there were similar. I mean, there are many books, similar books during his time. I mean, the similar books by the same name. I want to talk about all this literature on public finance. Look at this literature that you can see right now. There are 6 books that we are presenting to you, but all these 6 books carries only 2 names. Can you see it? Abu Yusuf, right, died 182, was the first person who wrote Kitab al-Kharaj. Then you have the second person who wrote on the same name Kitab al-Kharaj, right, who died 203. Number 3, it's Abu Ubaid, the current scholar that we are discussing, who wrote Kitab al-Amwal, who died 224. So you can see the time frame, the differences, 182, 203, 224, who wrote Kitab al-Amwal. Then again, number 4, we have Qudama bin Ja'far, who wrote Kitab al-Kharaj again, 322, who died in 320. Then we have Abu Ja'far al-Dawoodi. Look, Abu Ja'far Dawoodi, who wrote Kitab al-Amwal again, who died 402. Again, we have in between, we have Kitab al-Amwal, again written by Ibn Zanjawi. So now, if you see all together, you will find that, Kitab al-Kharaj was written by 3 different scholars of different time. The same thing goes to Kitab al-Amwal, was also written by 3 different scholars with 3 different time. So now, who is who is leading, who is not leading, then you can clearly see that Kitab al-Kharaj was led by Imam Abu Yusuf, and then Kitab al-Amwal was led by Imam Abu Ubayd. Then we have questions. Why is it actually others also they follow the same naming, titling of the book? Because they could have mentioned some other names, right? Just to identify, or maybe just to show it to the world, to address. It is better that you have different name. But the question comes here, what exactly the difference between this? First of all, Kitab al-Kharaj and Amwal. What is the subject matter of Kharaj? What is the subject matter of Amwal? Then again, the question comes, why the same names been used again and again until the 5th century of Hijrah? Right? To answer that, first of all, both books, Kitab al-Kharaj and Kitab al-Amwal, they may have differences in the naming, the titling, but the subject matter is the same. Because both books talks about the taxes, also talks about the zakat and sadaqah. It is also talks about the politics, the siyasa of the time. It also talks about the moral, the ethics of the ruler, the governors and all. Only the difference is it depends on where they come from and what purpose and upon what request that they have done. Like we discussed earlier, Imam Abu Yusuf wrote that book on the request of Harun al-Rashid. So Imam Abu Yusuf was very close to Imam Harun al-Rashid, but Imam Abu Ubayd was not that close to Harun al-Rashid. But Imam Abu Ubayd was close to. He was the patron. He was the patron of a commander who comes under Harun Rashid. So now if you go back to Khurasan, the story, the history of Khurasan, then you will see that there was a ruler, a commander, and Imam Abu Ubayd was close to him because that area, it was very close to him. And then later you will understand what he was doing, then we will come back to his timeline. All right, so now I'm just giving you example why there are so many names. It looks like the similar names but different authors. First of all, it written in this different time based upon the request of the different people, and then reflecting different scenario. I also told you last time that it is the time of expansion. It is the time of so many new things. There are so many arrivals. There are so many ideologies coming in. Especially we have new Muslims and we have non-Muslims and we have non-Arabic speaking Muslims. Like all of us, yeah. I think we all of us actually non-native Arabic speaker, like what they call it, تعليم العربية للناطقين بغيرها. So we are the الناطق بغير العربية. Am I right? Maybe someone speak Malay, someone speak Urdu, someone speak Hindi, someone may speak Thai, Indon, or Mandarin, right? We have people who speak Mandarin. So we are all comes under غير الناطقين بها, which means non-native Arabs. So now the issues were there. It's like so many new Muslims are coming, and then when people see Muslims are conquering the world, when they see the rise of Islam, the rise of Muslims, then so many countries surrounding, the Arab Peninsula, so many countries, they came into agreement. It's called sulh. That's why you don't see that, they always go and fight all the time. There are very few cases they fight, but most of the time, the non-Muslims, the non-native Arab people, they actually accept the agreement with Muslims. One of them is actually Khurasan people. Earlier, they were accepting, I mean, they agreed upon, and then they become the Mu'ahid, and then they also agreed to pay jizya. That's because they were not Muslims. If you are not a Muslim and you want to stay under the security of Islam, Sharia, then you have to pay the jizya. But this jizya was required to pay so that they can understand, they can have a second thought to go back to Islam. So later, when they saw the dealings of Muslims, they started accepting Islam. And then, when they started accepting Islam, they stopped paying jizya and they only were paying ushur. Because you are given a land, so you have to pay kharaj. But since if you are a non-Muslim and working and living under Islamic territory, then you have to pay jizya poll tax together with kharaj. But the moment you become Muslim, you don't have to pay jizya, you don't have to pay kharaj. Instead, you will pay the ushur. Ushur means the zakat, right? The zakat of that money, because whenever you are making the crop, all your all your harvesting and crops, you have to measure it, and accordingly you have to pay the zakat. So these are the different level of changes been happening around because of those period of 300 to 400 to 500 years within that time, and then expansion was going. And then of course, most of the time, you can also see the fight between the Khalifas, between the dynasties, for example, Abbasid dynasty and Umayyad dynasties, and then you have Fatimid, Hashimid, Tahrid, so many dynasties. Within them, who wants to become the next Khalifa? Yes, there was a fight. But with regard to the new people, the people from outside, the people from outside, mostly they came agreed upon, they came under the Sulh agreement. So now, as I was saying, everybody were doing different kinds of books within the same name, but the contents of the book will reflect the time. That's why you need to understand in next class, inshallah, I will be talking to you about the book itself, the Kitab al-Amwal. All right. So now coming back to this book, all the book names, I can also give you another example. At the same period of time, people started compiling hadith, right? Anybody know what is the name of compilation, that hadith that Imam Bukhari compiled? Do you have any idea what is the name of the book that Imam Bukhari compiled? Yes? I don't hear you. I don't hear you, or you don't hear me. Do you know the name of the book that Imam Bukhari compiled in hadith?
Was it Sahih Bukhari?
All right, it is a Bukhari because we call it Bukhari, right? We call it Sahih Bukhari. The book name was Al-Jami' Sahih Bukhari, right? So now the point here, if you look into the book that Imam Tirmidhi compiled, it is called Sunan. If you look into Imam Muslim compiled, again it's called Sahih and Al-Jami'. And if you look into Abu Dawud, the one he compiled hadith, he also called Sunan. Also Ibn Majah called Sunan. Also Nasa'i called Sunan. So now there is a name like Sunan, but that book is addressed by the author. That book is identified by the author of that book. That's why we call it Sunan Abu Dawud, Sunan Nasa'i, Sunan Ibn Majah, Jami' Bukhari, Jami' Muslim. So now this was the trend that time, because the book name was not so important. The content is important, and the content will be identified or addressed by the author. So the yeah, that was actually what was done. But later, inshallah, we will be looking into Kitab al-Amwal, what exactly, you know, made Kitab al-Amwal different. Yeah. Okay. This is Imam Abu Ubaid's lifetime. So let us talk about his life, and let us talk about his, um, the time, especially the timeline. What happened into Khorasan? Like I told you earlier, the expansion was going until Khorasan, and there was a border. It is called Thugur. Fa, Ghain, Waw, Ra. Thugur. Okay, Thugur means the frontline borders. Thugur means you will have one side Muslims living, the other side non-Muslims living. So that particular part, for example, today you can call it some place in between Malaysia and Indonesia, some place in between Malaysia and Thailand. I think Thailand should be better, or some place Singapore and Malaysia. So that part, it is always called a Thugur, right? So Imam uh, Imam Abu Ubaid was the person who lived there, who came from that place. So he already saw people coming into agreement, people becoming Muslims. And he was actually giving some private teaching to the commanders, to the governors of that place, of that time, because that time it was Abbasid rule. And especially the commander was governing under Khalifa Harun Rashid. So, so because of that connection, Imam Abu Ubaid was able to become the Qadi, the judge for 18 years. He was 18 years judge to that particular place. That's the reason why he was able to see how non-Muslims are becoming Muslims, and how, if non-Muslims under the agreement, how you supposed to deal with those non-Muslims. Let's say if non-Muslims are selling the non-Sharia product, right? Non-Sharia oriented product, or maybe non-halal products, how those things must be, how those taxes must be collected, in what way it should be distributed. These are the things. Most of the time people lives in Medina, they may not have this idea, but the people who lived in Sawur, the borders, the frontline borders, they actually happen to know, these things. So that is what actually Imam Abu Ubaid's timeline. And he was born in Harath, a town of Khorasan, northwest of Afghanistan today. Harath was one of the well-known big cities in Khorasan. Of course, the great trading center, strategically, the strategical place, because the trade routes, you need to understand, every person comes from the particular place where actually the trades are happening. And luckily, fortunately, the place where Imam Abu Ubaid came from, it was actually the trade routes from the Mediterranean Sea to India, or Mediterranean Sea to China. So now you can understand the market, the trade market over there. Although it was agreed that Abu Ubaid died 224, there were disagreement on the exact date. We don't know exactly, but also he was born either 150 or 154. So he was happened to live around 70 plus years. His father was Salam, as I told you, Byzantine origin, not capable of speaking proper Arabic. After in 219 Hijri, after performing his pilgrimage, he stayed in Mecca until the death. So Imam Abu Ubaid died in Mecca. So his qubur is actually in Mecca, not in Khorasan. But he was a great hero in Khorasan. Right? Today it's it's also part of Persian speaking people, Iranians. All right, then we have his education. So his education, of course, his father was illiterate, of course, and then he sent to many schools to receive proper education. And Imam, of course, he started studying from the native town in his early 20s. Then he went to Kufa, right? Kufa, you know, the place where today Iraq is there. Lots and lots of Hanafi scholars from Kufa. Then you have Basra and Baghdad to study Arabic grammar. As I told you, he was a non-Arab, but he started learning grammar, qira'at, tafsir, hadith. He also learned from 52 teachers, among them Sharik bin Abdullah, Ismail bin Ja'far, Muhammad al-Hasan Shaybani, the one who is also a student of Imam Abu Hanifa, Sufyan ibn Uwaina, also a very great scholar, Abdullah ibn Mubarak, great scholar, Yahya ibn Qattan, and also Waqi ibn al-Jarrah. Some of the teachers were jurists, commentators of the Quran, some of them were mufassirun, some of them muhaddithun. He became famous in Baghdad after he began to teach Gharib al-Hadith. And this is what I told you, his specialization was in Gharib al-Hadith. Among his well-known works were Kitab al-Gharib al-Hadith, Gharib al-Quran, Ma'ani al-Quran, Al-Nasikh wal-Mansukh fi al-Quran, right? But his magnum opus was Kitab al-Amwal. Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, Imam Bukhari lived in the same period of time when Abu Ubaid was living, and they had a high regards on his scholarship. You know, as I told you, if they have any issues in understanding the word, they always go back to Imam Abu Ubaid. All right, Imam Ubaid has been compared with Al Shafi'i, Ahmad ibn Hanbal. So that is what actually not necessarily, you know, not necessarily he has to be one of the four imams, but he has all the quality to become one of four imam. That's why he was compared with Imam Shafi'i and Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Although he studied for many teachers and masters, he did not adhere to any one school. This is what the most important thing. We will talk about it when we talk about his book. You see, he studied from many scholars, many teachers, many masters, but he didn't follow exactly their mazhab. I mean, he didn't follow their methodology. He created his own methodology, which we call ikhtiyariyah, which is actually eclectic middle course. Inshallah, we will be discussing this eclectic middle course in the next class when we talk about the contents of Kitab al-Amwal. These are the positions that he had. When he returned, he tutored two influential families of Khurasan. The fame of Abu Ubaid in Baghdad led him to closer contact with local dignitaries. So he was very close to those authorities. He was entrusted as a private teacher to the family of Harthama bin Ayan, a commander of, this is the commander I was talking about. He was very close to Harthama, a commander of Harun Rashid, who later moved to Khorasan. And these 18 years, Abu Ubaid was Qadi in Tarsus. Okay, remember the word Tarsus? This is a city name in Khorasan. Khorasan is the big space. Tarsus is the city where Imam Abu Ubaid was Qadi. And he was also, teaching the governor's family and everybody. And these 18 years, exactly what he was doing, we don't know yet. But probably that is what he kept that he kept having experiences because he was living in that particular place we called Sugur, which is actually a place where you have mixed communities, mixed race, mixed linguistic people, mixed languages. People comes and stay and go, that kind of places. Like for example, we have this country, beautiful Malaysia, where we have different races uh, living together. That kind of, perhaps that kind of place we may call it. So this is the background of Kitab al-Amwal. As I told you, this is what Imam Abu Ubaid was able to bring this book because he was living in the Tarsus. Tarsus is the city situated at the western end of the Syrian Thogur frontier border. between the Muslim territories and non-Muslim empire. The town of Tarsus was vulnerable to attacks from both Muslims and Byzantine sides. It became the object of capture and recapture by the opposing empire. So that place, especially the Tarsus city, sometimes will comes under Muslims control, sometimes goes to non-Muslim controls, because that place was in border. So usually the places in border always have a problem. Like we have Kashmir back in India, right? Sometimes Kashmir with Pakistan, sometimes Kashmir with India, and we have Pakistani territory in Kashmir. We have Indian territory Kashmir. So many problems over there. So that kind of just want to give you some example. You may have some your local examples like in maybe in Borneo, maybe in other places like Indonesia or Thailand. Maybe you may have some other examples like this. However, during the period in which Abu Ubayd was holding the office of Qadi, the 18 years, Tarsus was in the possession of Muslim state. That's why he became Qadi. If it is under somebody, he cannot become Qadi, right? When he was a Qadi at Tarsus, he was confronted with the issues of various sects, Iraq and the war with the Byzantines. Since unity is crucial in the border between Dar es Salaam, Dar al Harb, Dar al Harb, right? Dar al Harb is actually where actually non-Muslims are there, they are against Muslims. The existence of such sect would be detrimental to the Muslims. Beside the issue he was confronted with in Tarsus, when he went back to Khurasan during the emergence of Abdullah bin Tahir as a governor, it was already transformed into a prosperous city. So I think this Abdullah was the Amir of Khurasan. I think during his time, they say that Khurasan was flourishing. It was already transformed into prosperity. Kitab al-Amwal does play its role in the fiscal rearrangement of the Tahrir dynasty. The arrangement was to allocate the major revenue of zakat for local distribution and the benefits of the Khurasan people. Because this is also, you will be, inshallah, we will be reading it next class. It is also true that, the money, the revenues from Khurasan usually goes to Medina or Dimishq, or because they were so many rulers have different headquarters. It started in Medina, of course, Khulafa Rashidin, but later moved to Dimishq, later moved to Baghdad, later moved to even Cordoba, in Spain. So many, because according to their uh, opportunity, they were converting the headquarters. And then they create a headquarter and then they started ruling from there and then they start, this is our rule. This is what actually was happening that time. Inshallah, some other classes, inshallah, I will show you um, what they call it, um, the map where you can actually chronological map. You can see when Abbasid was there, when Umayyad was there, when Abbasid came in, and next until Uthmaniyah. Those are the dynasties. There are so many Fatimite, Hashimite, Tahrith, right? So many actually. Of course, Kitab al-Amwal does play its role in the fiscal rearrangement of Tahrir because he was also proposing, that saying whatever you collect in Khurasan, let it be distributed in Khurasan. Let it be distributed because Khurasan needs reformation. Khurasan needs its people. I mean, Khurasan needs to alleviate his poverty. Khurasan needs to, build the infrastructure. So that was the issue, and he actually uh, pointing out, and also he is helping the headquarters how you supposed to deal with non-Muslims, especially the collection of uh, collection of taxation collection, especially when they are under the agreement, right? Abu Ubaid must have faced legal problems relating to the conquest, which involved Muslim as well as non-Muslim, such as the problem of land, spoils of war, captives, and taxation. Due to this, that Sharia ruling pertaining to the status of Thubur lands whether or not they belong to Dar es Salaam, Dar al Islam, are also dealt with in Kitab al Amwal. He talks about that land. He also, Imam Abu Ubaid was able to, I mean, his book was able to create the next generation whereby their forefathers were non-Muslims paying jizya and kharaj together. But right now, the next generation, they became Muslim and they are only paying a ushur. So this is also a kind of, uh, you know, uh, it's a kind of impact that the book Kitab al-Amwal has given. During this period, that there was a peace agreement and an exchange of captives arranged by the leaders of the two armies, and this was reflected in Kitab al-Amwal on rulings regarding captives and prisoners of war, and also the need for strengthening of the local administration, which requires public finance and fiscal reform to ensure justice and the fulfillment of public need. And I really like the book written by, it is actually a great analytical analysis of Kitab al-Amwal, written by Dr. Ugi Suharto. Ugi Suharto did not just, translated the book. All right, when he was in STAC, he was able to submit this book as a thesis. It's completely analysis, and I really like the way he named the book. He said Kitab al-Amwal, Abu Ubaid's concept of public finance. We also have the direct translation of the book, which translated by Nur Muhammad Ghaffari. Nur Muhammad Ghaffari is the one who translated from Arabic to English. He named his book as the Book of Finance. But I really like the concept of public finance. This is, I think, the first person who talks about public finance. It was actually Imam Abu Ubaid. It reflects, it gives you impact, right? It's against the background that many scholars have attributed the origin of Kitab al-Amwal to Abu Ubaid's observation of the military, political, and fiscal problems faced by the governors of frontier. See, it was not only looking into, um, because his public finance involved in so many. That's why I think the 18 years he was as a qadi, he was able to uh, monitor, he was able to observe the changes and accordingly. And also, he was very close to the governors, the commanders, and authorities. He was able to give very good suggestions on how to deal with this crisis. So I think we'll stop here. All right. So we will start again from the book of the book Al-Amwal, the Kitab Al-Amwal is methodology, and also we talk about the book, inshallah, perhaps for the next class. Yeah. So this is your attendance. Yeah.